Santa Monica.
Josh Kirby, Council Office and Legislative Affairs Liaison for City of Santa Monica, non-voting.
Shelley Wolfberg, City of Culver City, Assistant to the City Manager.
Dan O'Brien, Mayor, Culver City, non-voting.
Yep. Hi, Yasmina Mani McMorrin, Culver City Council Member, voting member.
Hi, everyone. This is Diana Ching. I'm the Chief Transportation Officer with City of Culver City.
Hi, I'm Sharona Nazarian, voting member. It's on. Red is on?
Yes.
Okay. Things are working differently. All right, sounds good. I'm Sharona Nazarian. I'm mayor for City of Beverly Hills, voting member, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Hi, Mandy Jones, Senior Management Analyst, City of Beverly Hills, non-voting member.
Magdalena Davis, Community Outreach Manager, City of Beverly Hills, non-voting.
Great. So jumping in, the first action item is the approval of the February 13 board meeting notes. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes.
Second.
Thank you, West Hollywood and Beverly Hills. Can we do a roll?
Culver City.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I misheard there. West Hollywood and Culver City. With a second, can we have a roll call vote?
Yes, Beverly Hills.
Abstain again.
Okay. Culver City. Yes. Santa Monica,
Yes.
West Hollywood,
Yes.
and county.
Yes.
Oh, then they may not pass because it's 3. Them on the next.
Yeah.
Meeting, we'll put them again on the next agenda.
Oh, no, we have also.
Okay.
All right, with 4 votes, that passes. Next, item 3B, I will turn it, engagement letter for the 23-24 financial audit, and I'll turn this over to Cecilia for this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the exciting moment when we conduct our financial audit. Our COG treasurer recommends that we continue working with Moss, Levy, and Hartzheim LLP. They did our last audit. Included in the package is the engagement letter outlining the proposed scope of services and the fee to complete the audit. The fee is only increased by $400, so the total is $6,995. We have already programmed that increase into our budget for the year, so this is well within the range. And we would recommend approval of engaging this firm as our auditor.
Do we have any questions from the board? If not, then do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve?
Second.
Thank you, Beverly Hills. Second, from the City of West Hollywood. Can we do a roll call vote?
Yes, Beverly Hills,
Yes.
Culver City. Yes. West Santa Monica,
Yes.
West Hollywood.
Yes.
And county.
Yes.
Moving right along, item 3C, Metro West Side Central Service Council Representative. I'll hand this over to staff to present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So our the current term for our representative on the Metro's West Side Central City Services Council is of Mayor Chelsea Lee Byers is our current representative, and her term is set to expire on June 30th of this year. We have issued a call for candidates to serve on the council. It's a 3-year term that would begin July 1st. The other representatives that have been appointed by the COG include Martha Eros from the City of Beverly Hills. She served for quite some time, has been a terrific representative, and David Feinberg from the Santa Monica Big Blue Bus. Shockingly, we received a letter from Mayor Byers expressing her desire to continue serving on the Service Council. We did not receive any other letters, so we would recommend that Mayor Byers be nominated and approved as our Metro's West Side Central City Service Council representative.
Move to approve?
Second.
Excellent. Didn't even have to ask. City of Beverly Hills, and it's the second from the City of Culver City. I guess we have to do a vote, or do we do it by acclamation? Or? All right, without objection, by acclamation. Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much, Mayor Byers, for your willingness to continue to serve in this role on behalf of the COG.
Thank you. If I can just say, I was so happy to learn last night that our West Side service region has the highest ridership of any service region on Metro. And I think that speaks a lot to the connectivity between our communities and the opportunities of transportation we provide. And I believe the future is much brighter when it comes to that. There's a lot of joint development, housing being built across the West Side that'll increase that ridership, many other opportunities. So I was just really thrilled to hear that. And in terms of like actual service delivery, the cleanliness reporting, the on-time delivery, all of those things that really change the way that people experience Metro are really high on the West Side too. So we're doing really great. And I just wanted to share that. I was really proud of that. And thank you for the opportunity. Those second Wednesday nights are really a joy to be a part of. And there is a lot of real community engagement happening at that level to help shape Metro. The last thing I want to add is there was a really cool discussion that broke out 2 meetings ago at Metro about this music that plays at the stations as part of helping public safety components. And there was, because of the community, a focus on what classical meant. And we know we're in a very culturally diverse region of Los Angeles, and the idea of culturally specific music, even if it's classical, culturally specific music being played at each of the stations was something that we supported a letter for. So I was just excited to think about how the little Tokyo station could have a different sort of classical music playing eventually, and the whole region being transformed in that way too. So some cool work happening. Thank you for the opportunity to continue to serve.
Thank you so much. Moving to item 3D, programming for additional Metro Measure M sub-regional equity program funds, and I'll pass this over to staff.
And likewise, it's a nice segue from what Mayor Byers was talking about. This is really an exciting opportunity for us. As you know, we've been trying to get the West Side regional funds, the supplemental sub-regional equity program funds to help us build a bus network that will continue to make the West Side a transit-rich area. So I'm going to turn it over to Riley, who has been spearheading this. Riley, take it away.
Thank you, Cecilia, and thank you to the board. So our recommended actions for today are programming an additional $1.3 million in sub-regional equity program funds to the 2028 West Side Sub-Regional Bus Infrastructure Network, design and potential implementation for fiscal year 25-26, and also authorizing COG staff to enter into a funding agreement with Metro for up to approximately $33,000 from that overall total in project development funding. So I'll explain each of these in just a moment. Just to recap, back in February, the COG board voted to approve around $2.68 million in SEP funds to design and move towards shovel readiness and eventual implementation, but not guaranteeing implementation of all of these segments. The 3 corridors shown on the map here, so that includes Santa Monica Boulevard from the ocean to the Beverly Hills border, Sepulveda Boulevard from UCLA to LAX, and then a combined corridor along Jefferson Boulevard in Culver City and La Cienega Boulevard from Culver City through to portions of the city of LA, Beverly Hills, West Hollywood. And so we pulled this from our sub-regional funds from LA Metro, which had allocated around $6.7 million split evenly across 5 years from fiscal year 23-24 to 27-28. That is the only sub-regional equity program funds that we can expect until the 2040s at least. And this is a very flexible funding source, but after many months and frankly years of discussions and planning around this among the transportation working group, we recommended and the COG board voted to program these funds. So what happened since then, we also were given an assignment to basically program those funds, use those funds to support ongoing bus infrastructure design efforts in the sub-region. The city of Culver City already has started bus lane design and implementation on several corridors designed specifically on Sepulveda Boulevard. And they actually faced some uncertainty with their federal grant they had received. So they requested that we use a portion of those funds from February specifically around $960,000 to ensure that that project remains on schedule. They already have a contract. They're already going through the design process. So they're a couple of steps ahead of where the other segments are. And we want all the segments to keep moving at the, as fast as possible, as efficiently as possible, including that Culver City segment. So what we're asking today and recommending today is that we program this third year of the 5-year SEP allocation to cover Culver City's individual costs and also open up an additional around $400,000 for us to continue the design efforts and get these corridors prioritized, shovel ready, get a lot of input on the designs at each phase of the design, and determine how and when and where we'll be able to implement in time for the 2028 games. So that's the first action item. The second action item is 0.5% of the SEP funds. A maximum of that amount is allowed to go toward project development activities. And that is basically coordination among the jurisdictions and among the relevant parties to actually get these designs done and done so in an efficient manner. So what we've had already approved back in February was to develop an RFP and hire a consultant to do the bulk of the design work, particularly outside of that Sepulveda segment that already has a consultant within Culver City specifically. So to coordinate that consultant, basically be the project manager, we're asking that the Westside COG staff receive the maximum $33,000 and $445 to then take this and really be able to make sure that this work is done efficiently and as thoughtfully with direct input from COG staff and from COG board members. So those are the two actions today. Happy to take any questions.
Do we have any questions from the board? Seeing none immediately, I have one. When it comes to the allocation that we're looking to advance to Culver City, is that, I'm just curious in terms of how the number was arrived at, is that at the sort of cost per mile that Metro was estimating for the work we're doing across the region, hopefully, or?
So I would ask if perhaps staff from the city of Culver City would be able to answer that question. And I know Diana is here.
Hi, again, this is Diana, Chief Transportation Officer. This is essentially the cost of completing the design work associated with the Sepulveda Boulevard corridor, and that's something that we already have on contract. So there's a lot of work that's in regard to design as well as data collection and community engagement as a part of that.
Got it. I just know there were different numbers thrown out at the last meeting related to, how much that engagement and otherwise would cost on a sort of per mile basis. And I know that Culver City had one estimate and the Metro had another. And I'm just curious as to which sort of how we arrived at this number.
So these are actually based on the actual anticipated cost on the contract.
My other question.
It's definitely from us. It's not using the City of LA number, which is in our mind is grossly very underestimated and has very minimal in terms of the cost associated with community engagement, especially.
Second question related to that is, so I understand there's federal funding that's at jeopardy here, and we want to make sure you guys can move forward. What happens if that federal funding does come through? Is there money that then goes back to this regional effort, or how does that work?
I assume you want me to answer that question. So essentially, the funding will be reallocated toward construction of the project. So essentially, these are costs that could all come from the overall $100 million that are available through the SEP. But it won't go wasted. It's going to be applied toward the project.
Sorry, that's not what I heard you asking. Was that your question? if there's funding that we're providing right now and the federal funding kicks in, where will the resources that the cities are putting in go? Are we getting refunded on that, or how does it work?
No, so the funding will be already be used on the design. And that federal grant funding will then be reallocated to use toward construction. So in the strict sense, if you're saying that, the 960,000 is not going to be something that then goes back to the SEP part for the West Side COG, the answer is no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And is this just so I'm clear on the nature of the project? Are these bus only lanes? Is it peak hours, full BRT? What is the project in terms of what we're funding?
And that's something that we are still exploring right now. So what the project does is right now we're doing pre-planning activities. And so we are also looking at all the different ideas that we can implement bus lanes or mobility lanes, because it could be one of the options could be shared bus bike lane on support of that. So it is possible it can be peak hour or it can be 24-hour bus lanes.
If I may expand on Diana's answer, I completely agree with what she said. I will also note that the transportation working group, with including members of each jurisdiction, we discussed and approved this staff recommendation in quite a bit of detail. And ultimately, we're trying to make sure that things stay on schedule as much as possible toward implementation, so that we're able to, understanding that each jurisdiction has a different context, probably frankly has a different cost estimate that is required. We're trying to make sure that things are moving as efficiently and quickly as possible toward implementation in a context sensitive manner that, really fits the needs of the subregion as a whole and each individual jurisdiction.
Thank you. I really do want to see this project go forward. I think anyone who's acting to move now on this should deserve to get funding to make it happen. And the fact that Culver City is moving forward is a great thing, and I want to support it as a region for sure. I just also want to make sure that our money gets as many bus lane miles as we can, basically. So to me, there is a trade-off between engagement and how far our money extends in terms of this network that we're trying to build out. That said, do we have any further questions, or do we have a motion? Yeah, so do we have a motion to
I'm
approve?
happy to make the motion.
I'm happy to second it. City of Culver City.
And
makes
just
some-
to clarify, are you going to
Oh.
take both of them or separately? There are two recommended
Sorry,
actions.
there's two actions. Yeah, I
Can we take them together or separate?
think we can do it together.
Okay,
Together.
I motion to take action on positive action on both of the recommendations stated as from staff.
And I second that again. So that's the motion from Culver City, second from Santa Monica. Can we have a roll call vote?
Yes. Beverly Hills,
Yes.
Culver City,
Yes.
Santa Monica,
Yes.
West Hollywood,
Yes.
and County.
Abstain.
All right, moving right along. Item 3E, Local Solutions Fund, fiscal year 25-26 allocation for the West Side Council Cities of Government. I will hand this over to staff.
Yes. We have a recommendation for the Measure A local solution funds for this upcoming fiscal year 2025 to 26. Next slide, Riley. Next slide, Riley. Thank you. As shown on this table here, Measure A, which was passed last year, requires at least 15% of the annual funds go towards the comprehensive homelessness service, which we allocated to the local solution funds, which the county will distribute to the cities and the COGs. I also want to point out on number 4, the Measure A will also allocate 35% of its funds to the LA County Affordable Housing Solution Agency, which would also be distributed to the COGs, which we will discuss regionally together later this year. Next slide, Riley. Back in February at the board meeting, the county presented to us the 6 different funding allocation formulas. And on March 25th, after extensive stakeholder engagement, the Board of Supervisors adopted a formula which includes 90% two-year average of the point-in-time count, as well as 10% of the American Community Survey data, which identifies doubled up homelessness families. For this fiscal year, the county plans to enter into direct agreements with 17 cities, one including City of Santa Monica, as well as contracts directly with the COGs, including the West Side Cities COG, which will serve as the funding recipient for the cities of Beverly Hills, Culver City, and West Hollywood. Next slide, Riley. As shown on this table, the COG will receive $620,790 for this upcoming fiscal year. Eligible uses for the local solution funds includes direct homelessness services, interim and permanent supportive housing, as well as employment services for people experiencing homelessness. Our local solution funds has supported our West Side cities in funding interim and permanent supportive housing, motel vouchers, case management, eviction prevention, short-term rental assistance, and targeted outreach, as well as behavioral health crisis response. And then the next slide. So the county has a very ambitious timeline to execute all the contracts with the COGs by June 30th. They are requesting us to draft a statement of work and a budget by April 15th and finalize it by April 30th. We recommend that the board allow the COG staff to continue working directly with the cities of Beverly Hills, Culver City, and West Hollywood to develop a statement of work and budget for us to return to you at the next board meeting on June 12th to adopt the statement of work, budget, and the contract. And I believe we have representatives from county homeless initiatives on the line who can help answer questions.
Thank you, Winnie. I've opened it up at this time to either questions of the representative or of this body or discussion, barring questions. Seeing none immediately, I would move that we direct staff as recommended to continue working with each city on a finalized statement of work so that they can return to us at the next meeting to program these funds.
Second.
Thank you. That's moved by Santa Monica, second by Culver City. Can we have a roll call vote?
Yes, Beverly Hills. Culver City.
Yes.
Santa Monica.
Yes.
West Hollywood.
Yes.
And county.
Abstain.
All right. Moving to item 4, Executive Director Report. I'll hand this over to our Executive Director.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have a few just brief items, but I wanted to just start by letting everybody here know, all the members and our city representatives, that today is Winnie Fong's last meeting as the program director for the West Side Cities Council of Government. Winnie is going to be leaving our firm, Estelano Advisors, to become the senior manager of Complete Streets. Note that program at LA Metro. And she has served as your program director for like 10 years. She's been with our firm about 11 and has really been the driving force on helping to coordinate so many activities across all of your cities in the county. So I'm really sorry to see Winnie go, but very happy for her and hope that she will remember the West Side Cities fondly when you approach her division for Complete Streets funding. But I just wanted you all to know that I know many of the staff have worked for many years with Winnie, and I've just really enjoyed her leadership and her incredible competence in keeping this room of very strong-willed people moving along in a singular direction. So I'll let you all know that. I want to make sure y'all know we are going to have a seamless transition. Continue to be your executive director. Riley O'Brien, who's been working with your transportation working group, is going to step up to become the program director for the West Side Cities COG. And then we have other staff that have already been working on housing and homelessness for you who will also step up in the role. There cannot be another Winnie Fong, but we're going to do our best to fill in around the edges. So just wanted to let you know that. Couple other announcements. Your Form 700s due to the fires are due on June 2nd rather than April 1st, which would have been in trouble if it was due then. We will continue to work with you to coordinate and process those. Let us know if you have any questions. I'm sure you're doing the same filing as council members for your respective cities. Wanted to talk about the SCAG Regional Council District 41 election results. The election was held on March 19th. It was conducted by SCAG and the election ran smoothly. Congratulations to our chair, Councilmember Zwick, who was elected as our new representative on the regional council. Yay. And then want to just turn it over to Winnie for an update on REAP 2.0 and the La Casa program.
Yes, thanks, Cecilia. Just wanted to report back a request from the board members at the last meeting on the REAP 2.0 on-call technical assistance. So we did reach out to your cities and we compiled a list of potential services for the technical assistance, but we also will prioritize the REAP funds as noted by the board members on the formation of the Regional Housing Trust. So we have a draft MOU ready for our chair to sign, and we will return to the board. We'll be working with the Housing Working Group to interview the consultants and then come back to the board with a formal recommendation on the consultant in June. And for La Casa, as mentioned earlier, the COGS will have an allocation set aside for La Casa Measure A. Again, at the last meeting, we have two West Side cities representative on La Casa, which includes Councilmember Mirisch and Mayor Byers. So the South Bay Cities Council of Governments is currently developing a comprehensive strategy on how to minister La Casa. And they are working very closely with the agency on the funding allocation. Later in April, Riley and I will be meeting with the representatives of the other COGs and the CEO of La Casa to start collaborating on this partnership about how we can allocate the funds to housing and homelessness directly to the COGs. So we will report back in June. And I will turn it really briefly to Riley on the next item, and then we will turn it over to behavioral health.
Yes, thank you so much, Winnie and Cecilia. Really quickly, very excited to step up as the program director for the COG. Thank you, Winnie, for all of your leadership and mentorship over these last 6 years that I've been working with the COG. Want to just note really quickly, Sepulveda Transit Corridor, the planned rail project funded through Measure M connecting the San Fernando Valley to the west side. We have a stated position supporting an on-campus station at UCLA and a seamless connection to the Purple Line or D Line at Wilshire that is going to open in the next couple of years. And the four smaller member cities within our sub-region have each submitted a letter reiterating some form of that support. They've selected, in some cases, specific alternatives that they support, but they've each sent, all four of those cities have sent letters to Metro advocating for that position. And so we sent our own letter on behalf of staff working with the Transportation Working Group, just reiterating the support from each member jurisdiction and our own position in support of an on-campus UCLA station and seamless connection to the Purple Line. Metro is continuing its environmental review, and we will keep you all posted with more updates as we receive them. And that's all. Thank you.
That concludes the executive director's report.
Great, thank you, everyone. We are now at item 5, which is a presentation, behavioral health from Capstone. Santa Monica City Council has been engaging with Capstone for some time on doing some both city and regional assessments of our behavioral health services across the region. They presented to Santa Monica City Council in February to discuss their findings and recommendations for strengthening the system of intensive behavioral health care services for adults in Santa Monica and across SPA 5. And at this time, I think we wanted to share the results that they came up with the greater region, as it's a regional problem, and the scope of the study was across the SPA region, which encompasses much of the West Side COG. So at this point, I'd love to turn it over to Capstone consultants who are here with us on Zoom to present their report. They'll have a 10-minute presentation, and then we will turn it over to the board for questions and discussion.
Thank you very much. I'm Robin K. Wicker, one of the partners in Capstone. I'm delighted to introduce to you my partners, Cassandra Futuros and Mary Marks, who will be here to answer questions as they come up following the presentation. In starting, I just want to say a special thanks to the City of Santa Monica, particularly Heather Averick, Natasha Kingscote, and Nicole Liner-Jagamian, who have been our partners in this project. I'm going to present to you a PowerPoint that summarizes our findings. You have the full report, which is a bit lengthy. So in starting, I do want to note that we began our work with the City of Santa Monica and doing the analysis of the West Side almost about a year ago. And although our findings have not changed, the environment and the context in which behavioral health services are being delivered is in the process of changing greatly. And we can talk about that a little bit. It will come up in the presentation, but I just want to make note of that as we begin due to changes at the state and federal levels. So let me go ahead and pull up the presentation. Are you able to see? Cass, I can see you. Give me a thumbs up if it's visible. Okay, very good. So the City of Santa Monica retained us about a year ago to provide information that would support the expansion of intensive behavioral health care services in Santa Monica, but also on the West Side, recognizing that it's important for those services to be coordinated. We came in following the work done by Initium Health, looking at a full array of behavioral health services for children, transition-age youth, adults, and older adults, but our focus was specifically on adults. Our objectives were to catalog what currently exists by way of intensive behavioral health services in Santa Monica and Service Planning Area 5, to identify gaps in the array of existing services, and to highlight utilization and access challenges when services exist in insufficient capacity. And I want to stress this because, as you'll see in a few minutes, although there is an array of services on the West Side, in many cases they are always fully utilized, leaving residents unable to access the services that they need. And then finally, to make recommendations. So very, very quickly, we built our conceptual model for behavioral health services on a model that was developed by Manat Health through their contract with the State Department of Healthcare Services. And that's to ensure that the work that we're doing is aligned with and consistent with how the state views intensive behavioral health services. The conceptual model runs all the way from prevention and wellness services on the left and the least intensive services to intensive treatment services, which you see on the right of that bar. We were looking, however, only at intensive outpatient services, substance use disorder, residential treatment services, crisis services, and intensive treatment services. Now, as you know, and I won't go into this, we were looking at Service Planning Area 5 on the West Side solely. It's important to note that we did consider the fact that health insurance is a primary driver of where people can access behavioral health services. And we were focusing mostly on those individuals that do not have access to behavioral health through their private insurance, which is roughly about 30% of the population, at least of Santa Monica. We've done a project also for the city of Long Beach, and the numbers are roughly similar. When we look at the domain of behavioral health services, I want to point out that we are looking not just at mental health services, which many people consider to be synonymous with behavioral health. That is not the case. Behavioral health includes both mental health services and also services to those individuals who have a substance use disorder. And that's really crucial, as you'll see in a few minutes. We also want to make a distinction between services that are delivered through or under the auspices of the county departments of mental health, public health, and health services, which may be centrally administered. So some of the more intensive services like hospital inpatient services are administered centrally. And that leaves local jurisdictions like service planning areas very little latitude in terms of directing how those services are delivered. In contrast, there are services that are considered to be and the county hopes are more responsive to the local needs. And that became, in many ways, the focus of our work. So what did we find? So there are basically three categories. We found that on the West Side, there were certainly services that existed that had capacity to accept additional clients. And those included full service partnerships. Full service partnerships are intensive 24/7 wraparound services that are delivered in clinic settings or in the field wherever clients prefer. And they are intended to be responsive to individuals who may be unhoused, involved with the criminal justice system, have a history of frequent inpatient psychiatric hospitalizations, people that have serious mental health issues and a tremendous need, a high need for support and case management. We found that by and large, the West Side providers had done a good job recruiting psychiatrists and psychiatric nurse practitioners. So they were all generally able to accept new clients that needed medication evaluation and support. And this is critical because clients from the West Side who wind up in a psychiatric hospital must be maintained on the medications that are prescribed in order to remain stable. Provisionally, we found that there were quite a number of mobile crisis response teams, largely in response to the 988 rollout. But that is, I will stress, a highly provisional finding because at the time that we did our work, many of those teams were not fully ramped up. So it was really impossible to conclude that ultimately the number of mobile crisis teams would have the capacity to meet the need on the West Side. But it looked initially as though there might be sufficient capacity. However, we did find that there were existing services where the capacity is insufficient for the need on the West Side in Service Planning Area 5 and in Santa Monica. And this is critical because on paper, it looks like the West Side has a full array of certain intensive mental health and substance abuse services. However, they operate at full capacity almost all the time, which means that when residents of the West Side need to access them, they may not be able to do so. That includes the West Side Mental Health Urgent Care Center, operated by Exodus Recovery Incorporated, located in proximity to Culver City in that part of Mar Vista that's close by. Inpatient and acute beds, hospital beds, psychiatric health facility beds, that's an alternative to inpatient psychiatry, and residential treatment programs. The West Side has one crisis residential treatment program. It is always full. The enriched residential care, which are board and care facilities that the County Department of Mental Health attaches additional services to, augments those services that are delivered. There's very little on the West Side in that domain. Interim housing with behavioral health supportive services is lacking in quantity, and residential treatment for substance use disorders, although there is some, those programs are really basically always full. And then there are some services that do not exist at all in Service Planning Area 5. Detoxification for substance use disorders, which currently takes place in hospital emergency rooms, or when clients can wait to access those services a little bit, they're sent from the West Side to programs as far away as Long Beach and Tarzana. There is no substance use disorder sobering center. Again, sobering services frequently are provided by hospital emergency rooms, causing beds to be encumbered for that population. And then residential treatment programs. There are no behavioral health recuperative care services on the West Side. Those are programs that serve the need mostly of unhoused individuals coming out of hospitals who may have physical healthcare issues and need to be supported before they're able to return to some other kind of more permanent housing, including their own homes. And enriched residential services, which are facility-based programs that offer intensive treatment services to people that have a high level of need before they can be seen in community-based services. So what did we conclude? And again, you can read the full report. I'm just going to give you the Reader's Digest version. But we did find that one of our recommendations was that there is a need on the West Side for an expansion of substance use disorder programs that exist currently, as well as new programs. The prevalence of substance use disorders and the severity of substances that are being used currently really drive this as one of our primary recommendations. We also found that among adults with mental health needs, that there were really two overlapping yet distinct populations. That there's a population of individuals, general population of individuals who have intensive behavioral health needs. Those are people with serious mental illness. They may be at home, they may be in residential care, but it's the general population. And then overlapping with that population are people experiencing homelessness with intensive behavioral health needs. Why am I stressing this? Because the types of models that serve those two populations are, again, overlapping, but also slightly different. Third conclusion is that where we have capacity limitations, we risk having breaks in treatment. So in other words, if somebody no longer needs a particular program, but has to wait to get into the next program that they should be referred to, there's often a break in treatment, and it's during that break that people begin to decompensate and their mental health issues become worse. And then over the years, there's been a decrease in the care coordination capacity of the West Side County as a whole. And where we do not have dedicated staff to ensure that care is coordinated between one agency and another, clients fall through the cracks. And that means that they decompensate, they get worse, and then we pick them up when their illness is more acute, and they begin that cycle all over again. And then the fifth finding, and this is what I mentioned in the beginning, is that we currently have a system that is in complete that is in disequilibrium because of a number of changes that currently exist. And I mentioned them before. The mobile outreach rollout is not concluded yet, so the full picture is pending. We don't know what it looked like when all of the teams are fully up and running. Workforce limitations are a significant issue in Santa Monica, the West Side, Los Angeles County, and actually through the state of California. And workforce limitations do have an impact on the extent to which providers can accept new clients. So that's a concern. And then there are other challenges I have here in the slide, future challenges, but in fact, Proposition 1, which voters approved, which changes the Mental Health Services Act, it becomes the Behavioral Health Services Act, changes the array of funding significantly for mental health programs and substance abuse programs, and the planning for how that will affect Los Angeles County is going on currently, so we don't quite know what it will look like. I'll leave it for later, either in the presentation in response to questions or a future presentation to get into more detail about that. Payment reform is a consideration, and of course, now we have changes that are happening that are proposed at the federal level, which would have very significant impacts on all of the county departments that rely on Medicaid funding for their service delivery. I won't go through this whole slide because I know our time is short. A couple of implementation issues as the COG moves forward. We want to make a distinction between capital costs, costs to develop facilities, those are one-time costs, versus ongoing treatment and operational costs, which generally require the involvement of the county departments because the Medicaid programs run through those departments. And so the next item on the list is that there is going to be a reliance on relationship with the Department of Mental Health, Department of Health Services, and Department of Public Health Service Substance Abuse Prevention and Control Division in order to fully ramp up a plan for the West Side. And then I'm going to very quickly. There were 3 models that we recommended. The first was a centralized campus-based safe landing model. This is, as I mentioned, targeted on people experiencing homelessness. It includes the Safe Landing program itself, which is a facility-based model, 24/7 intake and evaluation, medication support, housing, some recuperative services, and linkage to primary care. Operated in collaboration with 2 expanded substance use disorder programs, detoxification, substance abuse residential beds, and then the expansion of several mental health programs, which include enriched residential services, as I mentioned, for people that are not ready to go home or to a homeless facility, and need residential treatment in order to maintain their stability in the community, as well as some additional augmented outpatient mental health services to serve those clients. The second model is for the more general adult population, and that includes an expansion of the Westside Mental Health Urgent Care Center. I will say the good news for the COG is that this is actually occurring currently. The City of Santa Monica, kudos to them, and the County Department of Mental Health stepped up because there was an opportunity to expand from the existing 12 beds to 16, so an increase of 30%. And that process is underway currently. Added to that, we were recommending a sobering center, also substance use disorder detox at residential beds, and the same mental health services that I mentioned previously. We were also including in this model special needs housing, which would expand the array of supportive interim housing for people that are in need. And both of those, by the way, are campus-based or facility-based models. The third model we were recommending was a decentralized expansion, more similar to what's going on currently with Hollywood 2.0, if you're familiar with that model. Focusing on the urgent care center, which, as I mentioned, is in the process of expansion, and the other substance abuse services and mental health services that I mentioned previously. We are also recommending that at one of the residential facilities that mental health recuperative care be added. It's an augmentation of any of those residential treatment programs to care for the individuals who have medical needs, and the rate of medical complications, comorbidity is very high in this population. And so there's often a recuperative period that where people need additional augmented medical services before they return to the community. So I'll stop there and stop my share. Whew. So that was a whirlwind. I went over very fast. Questions for us?
Thank you. Yeah, the Zoom is no longer on the screen, but there we are. Okay. Do we have any questions first from the board? Mayor Beverly Hills.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the report. One thing that our city has been focusing on is a holistic approach that's really been working well, because behavioral health services are extremely important, especially as it relates to dual diagnoses and mental health care and also substance abuse. And a lot of times people end up self-medicating because they're not getting the mental health treatment that they need. I think the mobile service response team is going to be really an excellent form of getting the treatment to the actual resident, the individuals that are experiencing homelessness. And one thing that we have is we're utilizing technology with the Apricot system. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
So it's a way that helps us to stay connected with the unhoused. We get their name, we get the number of times that we've had interaction with them. We're able to connect them with family. We've had great wins by being able to help the unhoused find their relatives who were looking for them, and they were disconnected. So that's something that's really been important. And we also have our nurse practitioners, and they're able to administer medication to the individuals. And one thing that I would really stress with any programs that we look at as a Westside COG
to have that holistic approach is also job placement and assistance with that. So not only to get somebody off the street, but when somebody's been off on the streets for a long time, they also have lost a lot of those skills and a lot of the social skills that also are attributed to that. So is there any thought or any direction in viewing those items?
So I'm not sure whether that's a question for me, Mayor. One of the changes that I alluded to was the modifications in the delivery of behavioral health services that are coming as a result of the passage of Prop 1 and the move to Behavioral Health Services Act from the Mental Health Services Act. That will place a greater emphasis on full service partnerships for people who are either unhoused or have high levels of behavioral health needs. And one of the mandatory services includes an evidence-based practice that all counties will be required to implement, focused on employment as one aspect of recovery, not the only aspect. It also includes peer services, drop-in services, et cetera. But that evidence-based practice focused on employment will become a part of the holistic full-service partnership services that every provider will deliver.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If there are no further questions at this time.
Just to understand,
yes,
so
Mayor.
today we're really looking at, I mean, so much, thank you for this work and the presentation. I just came from my city's homelessness subcommittee meeting this morning, and there is significant concern and emphasis on how our city retools our own strategy to address, to better address the homelessness crisis as we see it in our city. I was just looking at the discussion in next steps piece and acknowledge that SPA 5 doesn't include City of West Hollywood. We're the only city as part of this regional body. So, and in seeing just per our last discussion about the Measure A allocation shifting, and, you know, I think this is an opportunity for us as a COG to really make sure that we're investing in programming that raises the tide for the West Side region. And West Hollywood has to be a part of that as far as this COG is concerned. So I appreciate the opportunity to do further research and bring back a discussion that includes what West Hollywood is also experiencing, which I think is made complicated by the reality of so many City of Los Angeles neighbors around us too. So I would appreciate that opportunity to expand and make sure the City of West Hollywood is included in the discussion, because my understanding of next steps is that this body gets to decide what sort of regional solutions it would invest in. And it would be difficult to do that, understanding it would only benefit SPA 5 while we're left in SPA 4. It just gets complicated. So
Yeah, I'd love to turn it over to staff to talk a little bit more about some possibilities, but I will say, while obviously I think the needs will be roughly similar, it is important that we make sure we do that needs analysis for the COG. And I know that at least Santa Monica is also, I think, would be very willing to think about ways that, you know, as a regional body, we're investing in these solutions regionally. And my understanding is we have funds, local solutions funds, that have been stayed over from Measure H that could be allocated to furthering this work, both from a needs perspective, but also hopefully moving towards actually implementing when it comes to expanding upon some of these gaps and meeting some of these needs. But I'll hand it over if there's more. Oh, sorry, Mayor.
Yeah. Did you call me ma'am?
Mayor.
Oh. I'm just joking. So I wanted to just expand and say I agree with that, because homelessness does not have borders. And so while we may have city borders, we all need to be able to collaborate and work together, because a lot of times these are people who are moving from one area to the other. So I would be in support of that. If I may, Mr. Chair, to respond to Mayor Byers' question about this, we do have additional funds available, and one thought in terms of the next step from this. So we have a great grounding with this report, but it was intended for the city of Santa Monica. It wasn't really addressing the entire West Side, though it did take into account the service area and what's available. One approach might be to work with Capstone to update or to just do an addendum to the report to incorporate West Hollywood. So if you were to add West Hollywood's territory to this and have an assessment of what's available in your city, how might it change or in some ways affect the recommendations from a sub-regional perspective. Again, it's a different recommendation than you might make for a city that is only working on its own. So that's something that we were hoping to get some direction from the board today, whether you would like to go in that direction. Would it be something that you would like us to pursue, the ability to contract with Capstone, to have them update the study so that it incorporates the city of West Hollywood and provides sub-regional recommendations?
And just to add on a second there, I would say that our experience as a city in Santa Monica working with Capstone has been excellent, and their work has been excellent. And we would love to sort of leverage the work that we've done to make it fit the entire sub-region. When it relates to that, I would also say I would go beyond that, not just to identify perhaps the needs that we would identify if we were to expand this scope of work to include West Hollywood, but also to talk about, when it comes to future allocations of LSF funding, what would be the way, the most sort of practical and expeditious way to actually program some of this regional funding into some of these gaps and get a little more granular when it comes to not just where these gaps are, but how best, future LSF funding allocations could go to meet them in the immediate term.
I want to jump in just for 1 second because there were a couple side conversations, I think, before the meeting happened that may not have gotten to everybody. This board did authorize an RFP to do a further study back in December. And so that's already happening. Who's going to be selected to do the work? Capstone can participate in that RFP and has a lot of information that they will be able to add to the conversation, but there will be some sort of public process to select the contractor who's going to be doing an expanded study to include West Hollywood and all of the cities in the COG. And maybe Winnie can provide a little bit more specific detail on what the board directed, but there will be a public process to select who does that work.
Can I ask a legal question on that? Because a lot of this work is underway and it would be a shame to reinvent the wheel here, is there any leeway from this body to offer something that is more quick and sole source based on the work that's already been done?
I'll tell you, it's a little bit complicated for a couple reasons. One, the funding agreement for the fund specifically says that you will issue an RFP. And so there's something that's been committed already to the county when you accepted the funds. And it's a lot of money. And as I understand it, under Santa Monica's purchasing rules, there wasn't even an RFP done for this study because it fell underneath your threshold to have to do an RFP. And so there's going to need to be some public process for selecting a contractor. Could it be a little bit more streamlined? Perhaps. And can we find ways and take input from this body to find the quickest and easiest way to do it? Yes. But there is going to have to be some sort of public process to select the consultant.
Thank you for that legal clarification.
Do you want to provide a little more guidance on what the board recommended before?
That was it.
That's it? Okay.
And do we have a timeline on the issuance of that RFP and how long the study would be out for before we would be able to review those recommendations?
Thank you. We had drafted, so when we came to the board to authorize us to release the RFP in December, we had a draft, but we wanted to see and wait for Santa Monica's final feasibility or study to make sure that we include everything that we want, including West Hollywood, who's not part of SPA 5. I think what we would like from this board is to provide additional clarity on what else we should include in this RFP. And we do have an advisory group and a working group that we are vetting to make sure that we include everything that we need from a consultant on identifying those key gaps, as well as potentially looking at facilities. I think there were discussions a couple of years ago about looking at possible sites for a larger regional facility or facilities.
Sorry, yeah, you can mention the timeline and then I'll go to you, Mayor Nazarian.
For the funds or RFP, we want to get it out very quickly, but we wanted to make sure that we cover everything here and make in the RFP to make sure that while we have this RFP, we cover the data needs and the gaps that you are seeking. And anything else that we can include in the RFP for this consultant.
Mayor Nazarian, did you
Yes,
have more
thank
to
you
add?
very much. One area that I would recommend including, and oftentimes it's very difficult for facilities to provide this information, but it's their success rate. A lot of times it's a cycle but if they're able to provide some form of success rate, that would be very helpful in the RFP.
One thing I would just add, okay, one thing I would just add is, we obviously, we would want to expand upon this survey of gaps that have already been done. Regardless, I guess, of whether it is Capstone that is selected in this process, I hope we would use this report to say, let's start here, let's build off of what we know, what we've learned when it comes to these gaps, so that we're not starting over with that process. And, as I mentioned prior, I would love to kind of also build in terms of, if we've identified needs, are there instances like what were identified with a service coming online that we could put money into that would expand its beds or resources, or are there things that would, what are the best ways that some of these funds could be plugged in? And when it comes to Mayor Byers and her question about timelines, I think we all feel that as a regional body, we want some of this regional money to be going to this as soon as possible. And we don't really have the luxury perhaps of programming the current LSF funds, but it would be very important, I think, to me, that at least when we come around by next year, that we have a very actionable plan based on whatever timeline we're making.
And my thoughts with the RFP would be that we're obviously very specific to what's possible through the La Casa allocation. So while the information is helpful about all the gaps, I don't imagine that all of those gaps can also be funded with the specific resources that are coming our way. So I was of the mind that this is sufficient enough to sort of move forward as a body, even though West Hollywood isn't included, although the extra information is always helpful. But the goal to get to for me is, as Chair's saying, like the very specific place that we could be allocating these funds. Because I think we're as a region ready to move more expeditiously and helping get there. But what is there is sort of a question to me still, and where the overlap with the funding potential is really. So I think we're getting a lot of information that gives us a lot of ideas, but may not specifically align with what funding opportunities look like.
And to add on to that, I guess it's possible that both LSF and La Casa funds could potentially be programmed towards this, I imagine. So both of those funding streams, I would imagine. Is that
Yeah, no action is required, just that this discussion has been very helpful for us. Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to doing it in as streamlined a process as we can possibly do. Oh, now we have a public comment on this item. Okay, please.
Okay, hello, do you hear me? Yeah. My name is Zoe Montaner. I am part of the SALT 5 Department of Mental Health Leadership Program in LA County. And last year, Supervisor Horvath declared October ADHD Awareness Month. And something that I'm seeing that is missing in the gaps is developmental disabilities, which is ADHD, autism, dyslexia. I want to share some of the findings because I've been working in this space for a long time. And the Department of Mental Health, when I met with them in September 11 of last year, said, we don't have anybody in this space. We don't have anybody on staff that is informing us of the needs of neurodivergent populations in Los Angeles. So this is something that is relevant because on March 28, Governor Newsom announced a master plan to support people with mental neurodivergence. And I'm just, and then last week, Supervisor Han at this Board of Supervisors meeting also put an item on the agenda for a plan on this particular population. So this is something that is very relevant. 2 weeks ago, Oprah Winfrey had a show on the late onset of ADHD in women in perimenopause and menopause. That is also affecting comorbidities in the anxiety and depression and heart attack because the level of anxiety is so high. And when they go undiagnosed, a lot of women have been historically misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder or manic depression or anxiety and depression. So this is a problem and that we need to address in this particular, now with the RFP. I'm so glad that I'm in this meeting because I talked to Josh about this on Tuesday, and I talked to Mayor Lana Negrete about this last December when she had an event in Santa Monica to talk with the community. So these are things that I would like for the RFP to include, and for the city of Santa Monica, also the capstone solutions to include.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we can take that into account. Very quickly, because I know we're over time, Jeff Kiernan is not here today, so we'll ask the board to defer to the packet. Oh, he is? He's not. Okay. So we'll ask the board to defer to the packet for his update. The next meeting, item 7, will be in Santa Monica finally. We're excited to host you all on Thursday, June 12th, 2025. And do we have public comments, generally speaking now? One minute.
Came really fast and I was just trying to switch. Last Tuesday, I presented to the Santa Monica City Council a charter amendments and ballot initiatives to offer 2 effective pathways to make participatory budgeting part of the permanent local civic infrastructure. During engaging workshops that we can offer to the community, we can learn from veteran participatory budgeting advocates and practitioners about how each of these strategies can be used, how they interact and differ, and the key steps to get started on a campaign in your community. This is a democratic process to allocate some budget for the community to decide what they want to do with it. And then you have your voters and your community happy because they have a say on how the funds and public funds are used. And I would like to add that to the agenda on Santa Monica.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next comment. Mackenzie.
Do I need to press a button?
I think it's on.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm just introducing myself. My name is Mackenzie Neely Wright. I do external and legislative affairs for AT&T. I'm now responsible for some of the West Side cities, including Culver City, Santa Monica, and Beverly Hills. West Hollywood is nothing personal. There's just someone that already had the relationship, but I'm still happy to answer any questions. So as we have updates and legislation going on, especially as we transition from our legacy network, I want to make sure that I'm connected with you all to provide those updates and questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, we will now adjourn the meeting at 1:23, a little later than anticipated. We got started a little later. Let's start on time and end on time next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. And be sure to get some extra food and validate your parking in the back there. Yes.